Well, I went from reading one of the longest books on the countdown to two of the shortest. Let's get to it. Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a 1001 book countdown for you. If you're not familiar with the 1001 book countdown, I will leave a card up here for you where you can go and check out the original video where I talk about all of the details of this massive challenge I have set for myself, and probably way too much detail. But yeah, if you want to go check that out. But basically I'm reading books off of the 1001 books you must read before you die list and just slowly making my way through them. So please consider giving me a subscribe and sticking around and seeing how long it will take me to make it through all of these books. My guess is a while. All right, but for today, let's go ahead and put up the numbers, which I always have to look at because I always forget what they are. So the main number is 915, and then every year I pre-select 52 books that I want to focus on in the year, and for 2022, I have 20 books left. Not too bad, not great, but not too bad. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual books though. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is On the Road by Jack Kerouac. And so On the Road was originally published in 1957, and it is the only book by Kerouac that is on the 1001 book countdown. Kerouac doesn't seem to have a huge amount of published works, so some things were published posthumously for him. It looks like he had a very early young death at the age of 47, and from what I can tell, it was because of a lifetime of drinking. The references that I've seen on the Road by Kerouac were hugely influential and some major performance artists at the time. And it's one of those books that I feel like I had to read. I'd heard so much about it and really thought, yes, this is a book I need to pick up. I want to pick this up. I want to find out what it was all about. I want to find out what Kerouac was all about. And unfortunately, this book didn't work for me. I went in with a very preconceived notion that this book was going to be very pretentious, and it never worked its way out of that for me. I think AJ Dunn in one of my comments had said something about, if you're not familiar with AJ's channel, I will also leave it linked in the description below for you, about needing to be a disaffected youth to really kind of connect with this book, and I do think that that was part of it. I, even as a teenager, did not have like that big disconnected kind of time where I can see the appeal of this. I can see the appeal of this book is set in post-World War II and is somewhat autobiographical from what I could find out when researching what I wanted to talk about. And it does really start with the main character traveling from his home in New York and really kind of just going all over the country with a wide variety of different characters. Now there is some reference if you look up the book, of those characters actually representing people in Kerouac's life. But yeah, it wasn't completely autobiographical. There is a lot of what feels like just references that wouldn't necessarily maybe be part of Kerouac's life. So basically what's happening with this is a group, sometimes one, sometimes two, sometimes more than that, traveling around the United States, finding work wherever they can, finding, sleeping wherever they can, making money however they can, and just kind of doing whatever, whenever they want, with no real purpose. It's just kind of, for me, that's not the kind of life I really live. And I don't feel like Kerouac, for me, got me interested and invested in the characters. I didn't really care. I didn't really care what happened to him. I didn't really care what happened to, a couple of the people in the book. It just didn't work for me. I wanted to. I was hoping it would get past my bias, and it just never worked, which is really too bad, because I feel like this is just one of those pieces that's such a well-known piece of literature, and I didn't like it. Maybe I'll try reading or watching a adaptation of it, because I know that there's at least one that I know of. I will say that the audiobook, which I had for I listened to some of it, has Will Patton as the narrator, and he does an excellent job. And he did that, the narrator in that at least got me interested enough to actually read it, where when I was opening it and trying to read it, not so much. And then towards the end, I felt like I was skimming some of it, and because I just could not get invested in these characters, which is really sad. I wanted to love it, but it is on the 1001 Book Countdown. It wasn't huge as far as length goes, so it was a fairly easy read. I read this the last week in August, but with this book, we do get to go from 9:15 to 9:14, and it was on the 2022 list, so for that, we get to go from 20 to 19. Cool. Very happy. All right. So the next book that I ended up reading was Blindness by Henry Green. So this book was originally published in 1926, and it is Henry Green's debut novel. Henry Green actually has 6 books on the 1001 Book Countdown. So this is the first one that I have read, though. And so this follows a character whose name is John, and the very beginning of the book, it is really excerpts from a diary, which were somewhat clunky for me. It didn't refer to people's names. It just had initials in there. So it was really hard to get invested in what was going on. There is a kind of a carefree, light kind of attitude in the beginning in those diary entries, though, that kind of set the tone for the first part of the book. And then what happens is he has a very horrible accident in which he ends up being blinded. And it was nothing that he did. It was just unfortunate luck. And it sounded fairly horrific and graphic what happened to him. So he ends up going home where he's cared for by, I believe, a family member. I don't know that it's his mother, though. And so the first kind of section is really with her and talking about having to care for him and those pieces. And then it switches to his perspective. And he's just trying to figure out how to be blind in a lot of cases. And so there's some really beautiful writing in this book. There's some sections where he's like basically kind of almost starting to develop his other senses. He's laying on the grass and he's hearing birds for the first time, and he's touching the grass and feeling it, and it's just really lovely. There's also kind of a love interest that comes into this book in the character Joan, and Joan is a kind of, I believe, a neighbor, and he calls her June, and their relationship, I got lost a little bit in that. And at the end of the book, it lost me a bit as well. And so what I'm hoping is, I will be obviously reading more Henry Green. I think there's promise. I think there's a lot that I really liked about this book, that I liked about the writing in the book. And so I'm really looking forward to reading another Henry Green and seeing what I think of him as an author. I'm hoping that it continues and it just gets better from the debut novel. So we'll see what happens, but I really did like kind of the main character. I liked the journey he was starting to go on. It did change perspectives from time to time, which felt a little bit clunky as well. Like if we would have just stayed with John, I think it would have been really an interesting book as well. But yeah, the switching of context, and then so it took a little bit sometimes to figure out who was talking and who the narrator was. But overall, I really did enjoy it. And again, it's a short one. It's a fairly fast one. I think I got it at a discount as well, which always makes me happy. But Blindness by Henry Green was the more successful of the 2 books in the countdown for this video. So, but with this book, we get to go from 9:14 to 9:13, and it was on the 2022 list. So we get to go from 19 to 18. 18 is not bad. 18 is doable. 18 feels reasonable. I have 4 months left. I can do it. So one of the reasons I say that is because a lot of the bigger books that I had to read this year have been completed. So one of the last big ones, Kristin Lavransdatter, I am in book 3, and I only have part 2 and part 3 of book 3 to finish reading. So Kristin Lavransdatter, and I'm still really loving this one. I can't wait to talk about this one in more detail, but I am reading that one. That's actually the only book on the 1001 Book Countdown that I have in progress right now. I will be starting The Dispossessed by Ursula K. LeGuin in about another day or so. This is my book club pick, my 1001 book club. There's no requirements to joining the book club. Just read the book. I do have a Discord, which I will leave linked in the description below for you. I'm not super active on Discord, but you're welcome to come out or welcome to read the book at the same time. And I hope to start this in about another day or so. And that's really all I have kind of in flight on the 1001 Book Countdown. I have started a buddy read for The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I know in a previous video I said that this is the inspiration for Firefly. other people have said, no, it's not. And after starting it, it doesn't feel like it is. So I don't know now where I got that. But I'm doing this as a buddy read with Fraser Simon from Fraser Simon Springboard Thought and Gemma from Gemma Books. And I'm loving this book. I'm having a hard time putting it down. If I was reading it on my own, I probably would read it in just a couple of days because it's not, I mean, it's a very easy read for sure. And then the other book that I have officially started is this one, The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. I'm doing this as a buddy read with AJ Dunn from AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, and Nikki from Red Dot Reads, and Angela, who's one of our subscribers. And I am only about 20 pages in and loving it so far. There's quite an opening with this book. If you've read this, you might know what I'm talking about. It's somewhat traumatic at the very beginning of the book. So I'm excited to see where it goes. But that's kind of what I have in flight right now. I do have some other books I'm hoping to pick up in the next couple of days, but that's my active reads. So lots of exciting reading. Oh, I did also finish Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I did that as a buddy read with Dia from Novel Ideas, and I will talk about that in an upcoming video, but that was a 600-page chunker that we read at the first part of September. So that's been my main focus reading the last week. And I'm excited to talk about that one a little bit later. But that is all I have for you today. So have you read any of these books? Are you going to join the book club for the Dispossessed? Love to have you. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thanks. Bye.